The AFD Amp, the whole reason behind building that or producing that amp with Marshall was there was a lot of die-hard fans who I guess were closet technicians that have been trying to rebuild the amplifier that I used on the Appetite for Destruction back in 1986. So basically they were trying to reinvent that sound in their garage or whatever. So I just thought it would be cool as if Marshall actually reproduced an amp that was basically a derivative of whatever it was I was using in '86. So what I did was I got together with Santiago over at Marshall, who's their chief designer, and I said, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to produce the actual tracks off of the Appetite record, the guitar tracks, so you can get a really good idea of what that amp sounds like. And even for me, it was an interesting process because we got the naked tracks from the masters, and I got Night Train and Welcome to the Jungle, and I think the other song was Rock a Queen or Sweet Child of Mine, something like that. And it does have a certain particular kind of mid-range gain to it that's sort of unique, you know? Santiago and I got together and sort of to really focus on these characteristics. And then he went to work, you know, in Hong Kong, trying to get this thing together. And fortunately, I had a tour through Asia at one point, and then he would bring the amp over and I would tweak on it, you know. And we used it for some shows, and I figured out what wasn't right about it, and then I would send it back. And we went through this all through that tour, all the way until the tour was over. We finally got it to a place where it sounded identical to the actual AFD sound. And so at this point, I'm using that amp on the road, but I also augment it with JCM 800. Just to me, I don't want to go back and revisit that sound in its entirety, but we did produce that amp basically for fans, you know. The Jubilee Amp was a limited edition Marshall 100 watt that came out in the 80s, and at some point during the Guns N' Roses tour, that became the amp that I was using. And I can't remember the exact chain of events that led up to that. Before that, I had just a bunch of beat up old heads that I'd picked up and collected over the years, you know, as a sort of a club band in LA. I picked up some Jubilee Marshall heads, and those became my live head for years. And it wasn't until Guns N' Roses had a riot in 1991 where I lost most of my gear that we went on to start making the Slash model heads. But the Jubilee was a great sounding live rig. My new record's called Apocalyptic Love, and it's with Miles Kennedy on vocals, was recorded live. Because it's recorded live, it's very spontaneous, which is something I've always tried to sort of rely on anyway, but because it's recorded the way it is, it's very much in the moment. There's no going back and fixing anything. So it's got a certain kind of spark there. But you know, over time, I think I've finally gotten a band together that I can make a really great driving rock record with very little to no hassle. The whole album was written on the road, and we're playing 6 nights a week. And if we're not playing, we're traveling. We have very little free time. And so I'm trying to get ideas together. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'll get to my room and I'll put whatever idea has been swimming in my head down. I started to look for ways to record ideas on the road, but in most cases I was too busy partying to really concentrate. But as of 2008, 2007, 2008, I started to really concentrate on getting ideas down on something. And you know, there was a couple different things that were available, but at some point during the tour that stemmed from my last solo record, I was introduced to the iRig, and I was just floored by it because that's exactly what I was looking for. You know, I just started putting down a lot of the ideas that are on this record. That was the tool that I used to do it with. It's just one of those things I was like, it's a eureka moment. I don't like anything that's too complicated to set up. Anything that takes more than 5 minutes to set up, I'm gonna lose the inspiration to do whatever it was I was trying to do in the first place. If I have a sound that needs an effect, it's right there. Well, I mean, I'm pretty well known for not using a lot of outboard effects, but at the same time, in certain songs, I do have signature things that I use, and we've reproduced them with AmpliTube. The chorus that I use, like for the beginning of Paradise City, or some other sort of arpeggio picking kind of things. A boost, which is something that I always use for guitar solos, just to raise the solo above the din of the band a little bit. An octave pedal, which is something that I use on this newest record in a couple songs, but it's always been something that I've toyed around with. And then the wah-wah pedal, which has a distortion element to it as well, which is something that is, I actually have a wah-wah pedal with a distortion switch on it. So we tried to sort of recreate all those possibilities. And then you can augment that with, you know, the myriad of different pedals that AmpliTube offers.